Demand is a major component of economics and a key factor into understanding microeconomics. Demand and supply are intertwined. One affects the other. But in this episode, we're only going to be discussing demand. So what is demand? Demand is the quantity of a good or service a consumer is willing to buy. There are two different types of demand: quantity demanded and just demand. It's important to know the difference between these. So again, demand is the amount of a good or service that consumers are willing to buy. Quantity demanded is the amount of a good or service that consumers are willing to buy at a certain price at a certain time. For example, if the price of brand A shampoo increases, the demand will remain the same, but the quantity demanded will decrease for this item. So now that we know the difference between the two demands, let's discuss what actually affects demand. What causes it to increase and decrease? Consumers are the shifters of demand. The market doesn't shift demand, consumers do. The factors that affect demand include changes in taste and preferences, income, prices of substitutes and complement goods, expectations of price, and the number of consumers. So let's talk about each of these factors individually. So to start off, changes in tastes and preferences. These changes, for example, may include influences from the weather, trends, etc. So let's say the season changed from fall to winter. People would prefer winter clothes, such as a winter jacket. When consumers' preferences of goods and services change, so does the demand for those items. The second factor is changes in income. So let's first go into what a normal good and an inferior good is. A normal good would be a luxury good, while an inferior good would be something, inferior. For example, if someone's wage were to increase and they were no longer making $40,000 a year, but they were suddenly earning $100,000 a year, a drastic change, yes, but for this example, we're going to pretend that these conditions are true. So rather than eating a cheap, affordable meal, such as McDonald's, you'll probably opt for a dinner at a Michelin star restaurant. A normal good is a good that is purchased when one's income increases, and a good that is less desired when one's income increases is what defines an inferior good. So how does this affect demand? If income were to increase, the demand of a normal good would increase, while the demand of an inferior good would decrease. So therefore, if income were to decrease, the demand of a normal good would decrease, while the demand of an inferior good would increase. The third one is prices of substitutes and complements. So what is a substitute and complement? A substitute good would be like toothpaste in a pump and toothpaste in a tube. One could be substituted for the other. And a complement good is something that is like a pair with another, such as a softball and a bat. So let's say there is brand A and brand B of shampoo. The price of brand A goes up, and because it's more expensive than it used to be, more people will buy brand B, whose prices remain the same and is now cheaper than brand A. This means the demand for brand A will decrease and demand for brand B will decrease. Let's say there's brand A and brand B of shampoo. The price of brand A goes up, and because it's more expensive than it used to be, more people will buy brand B, whose prices remain the same and is now cheaper than brand A. This means the demand for brand A will decrease and demand for brand B will increase. Complementary goods are, again, goods that are consumed together. So we're going to use baseballs and bats as an example. If the price of baseballs were to go up, the demand for baseballs would go down. And because the demand for baseballs decreases, the complementary good, baseball bats, would decrease as well. And now our next factor, expectations of price. If consumers think the price of a good or service will increase, the demand increases. If consumers think the price of a good or service would decrease, the demand will decrease. Let's say the price of winter boots were predicted to go up, then the demand would increase because people want to purchase the goods before it gets expensive. If the price of winter boots were predicted to go down, the demand would decrease because people want to wait until the price goes down to get the boots at a better price. And now our last factor, the number of consumers. So this is pretty simple. If more people want a good or service, the demand will go up. And if there's a decrease in consumers, demand will go down because less people want the item. Price and quantity have an inverse relationship. While one increases, the other decreases, and vice versa. This idea is expressed by the law of demand, which states that a decrease in the price of a good will increase the quantity demanded. And to simplify, quantity demanded decreases at higher prices of a good or service. A demand curve can be used to graphically express this relationship. When price decreases, the demand curve will shift towards the right, showing an increase in demand. When prices increase, the demand curve will shift to the left, representing the decrease in demand. So now that we've covered the topic of demand, we can conclude that buyers rather than producers influence demand. And as the circumstances of the consumers and the influence of price on their decision-making continue to exist, the market demand curve is influenced and shifted either to the right or to the left to signify a decrease or an increase in demand.